World War III Day X update. In light of the never-ending train wreck of events that have been unfolding inside Russia in the last 24 hours, I can only surmise that Vladimir Putin is withholding his best moves for that fateful Day X, that proverbial Day X, that day, of course, when all hostilities culminate into one massive coordinated conflagration between the East and the Western powers. That day that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran all unleash all at once, knowing that the United States can't be everywhere all the time. I think that's what's happening. I think that's why Vladimir Putin, who ostensibly has the capability to deliver a tactical nuclear warhead in a place that is going to be operationally useful, that is the only reason why he hasn't used it yet, is because he knows that the day is coming. And he probably knows that once he oversteps that boundary, he's going to open up a can of worms. And that's why he is trying not to do it. He is trying not to do it, folks, but we are making it very, very challenging for him not to do so. Because now the protest is not about you need to stop the war in Russia. The protest is you need to get this war sorted out. And almost every single pundit we are hearing on the Russian side is saying, now's the fucking time to push the button. Because if we don't push it now, we're going to have to push it a lot more times in the future. Here's what's going on. The U.S. Embassy in Ukraine has issued an alert. Civilian infrastructure and government facilities in the coming days will be the target of strategic bombing by Russia. Is Russia going to give them an ass whooping once and for all? Or is this just going to be the 237th sortie flown into Ukraine in which the Ukrainians just kind of dust it off and get back to shooting missiles at Moscow once again? That's probably what it's going to be, because that's what we've come to expect. But one of these days, we would expect that the shit's going to hit the fan, but it just seems to never happen. Thank God, because I got to keep prepping this homestead. My greenhouse isn't fully built out in the interior quite yet. This is Vladimir Putin talking about an attack on the Kursk nuclear power plant today. He brought this to the attention of the International Atomic Energy Agency, insisting that a couple drones targeted spent fuel cooling ponds of the Kursk nuclear power plant. That is a pretty hefty charge. We have Germany insisting that the Russians are surveilling their nuclear facilities. They got the planes, they got the drones and everything. But let's go back to see what's happening in Russia. One of their last ferries, a rail car ferry in fact, these are very important logistically for Crimea right now, especially if they take out the Crimean bridge. They're going to need these in order to provide vital resources to that peninsula. And guess what happened to it? It was destroyed, quite possibly with American-made weapons and American targeting systems, and quite possibly Americans pushing the button. And you don't think that Americans are there doing it? Well, this is what's going down right now. Let's just see. Oh, who is this? Oh, these are some American mercenaries, PMC. I can't remember their exact name, but they're currently posing in front of a recruitment billboard, obviously inside Russia somewhere, presumably in Kursk. We also have a massive bombardment of the Maryanovka air base inside Russia. Confirmed kills of numerous fighter jets. It was not a good day for Russia, and we still, of course, have massive oil refineries in flames across Russia in multiple different places, non-stop drone bombardment, bee sting attacks everywhere inside Russia. Zhirinovsky in 1999, this video was brought to my attention today, he's predicted all sorts of shit, man. He predicted the Ukraine war down to the damn day. He predicted that the Iran war would start in 2024, that there would be no elections in 2024. And in 1999, he said that NATO was going to be in Kursk someday if the Russians didn't start to posture themselves more aggressively, strategically, and didn't take the threat of NATO expansion Seriously, that was in 1999. Finland is bringing in brigade of troops from NATO. We have more pictures of the air base. We have Russian convoys, a massive column of Russian troops en route to Kursk. We got the Russians and the Chinese meeting for strategic matters, we can presume, and this is bad, because when the Russians and the Chinese fully mature in their military strategic partnership and the Chinese don't care about sanctions anymore, we better watch out. Because I think that this is what Vladimir Putin is waiting for. He is waiting to get the green light from China. And once he gets the green light from China, it is game over. And so long as we continue to push in Taiwan, that prospect becomes more and more likely. We have reconnaissance activity along the Finnish border. At the Finnish-Russian border, I should say. Remember, I just told you that NATO is going to be moving more troops. Finland is opening its military bases up to U.S. nuclear weapons very soon. Mark my words. We also have more reconnaissance activity there. The Yemenis are shooting down these Reaper drones like it's nobody business. I believe this is number 9. Number frickin' 9 of the war. We also have more propaganda videos from Yemen, the Yemenis, Hezbollah. I'm telling you, the axis of resistance, and as they've said today, they are getting ready to coordinate a massive death blow on Israel and the United States and their paltry 2 aircraft carriers and a few warships and a few military bases within the region, which is not to say they need to be underestimated, because of course they're going to wreak a lot of havoc. But U.S. troops simply don't have the manpower within the region in order to protect themselves against the onslaught that's coming. And the administration knows that. Unfortunately, those poor schmucks are there as a tripwire. And when the war starts and when the bases get hit, that is going to be the call to arms in the United States. Oh, we got to do something about it, folks. We got to go into a massive multi-trillion-dollar war, money that we don't have once again. In the Altai Mountains, rumor has it that Vladimir Putin is filling up another bunker. Now, the Russians are always filling bunkers. This is just part of their strategic culture. So Russian bunkers are chock full of everything that you can imagine that we don't have here. But new information has come out from a reputable source that indeed these efforts have been doubled down on in recent days. And I'm going to go over the report with you today as well. We got some news coming out of North Korea. They're doing their, every 4 years, they have this thing where they worship and they scream hoorah, and they spend a bunch of money on these things, these non-environmentally friendly, meaningless placards for this complete and utter distraction that's not going to mean a damn thing because it's World War III and the economy is collapsing. And of course, we're all going to be placed by this. This is the new Boston Dynamics video where they demonstrate the Atlas humanoid robot, the most advanced humanoid robot in the world, doing push-ups. He's getting ready, folks. He's training. Because everybody's worried about depopulation. Well, they're going to replace us with these guys. And when the police refuse orders, guess what? It's going to be like that movie Elysium. They ain't going to need police anymore. There's going to be far more efficient killers by that point in time. They're just hoping that they can postpone the World War III until the Terminator hunter killers get here, because let's face it, World War III comes around. If you were rich enough to have bought some of these humanoid hunter-killers before that, that could be how you ride out the apocalypse, so long as you have a power source, right? But you never know. People are going to turn on you. So, I mean, this is going to be a staple in all of the elites' bunkers around the world. Now, here is my primary concern at this point in time, guys. Right now, we are seeing the constant overstepping of red lines, and you're hearing almost unanimously now this idea that the Russians are bluffing, okay? And why don't we just push all the way? The Russians have no escalation dominance anymore. This is what people are starting to think. The emperor has no clothes. You even have whack jobs like Peter Zion saying maybe the Russians don't have the technology to launch nuclear weapons. This is also the guy who thinks that China is going to collapse within a couple years or something ridiculous like that. So just remember where his allegiances lie in terms of the military-industrial complex, and that's all I'll say about that. But essentially what we have here is a situation where you have numerous generals, military generals and politicians around the world who are starting to become very emboldened in their enabling of the Ukrainians to target deeper and deeper into Russia with their weapons. In fact, just today, the Pentagon said, oh yeah, you can use your weapons in Kursk. In fact, many of the infrastructure and military bases that are going up in smoke inside Russia right now are not just the result of drones, they are the result of ATACMS and GLMRS, is that what they're called? Guided multiple launch rocket systems. So we know that the U.S. has greenlit attacks into this region, and this is why the U.S. Embassy is warning Ukrainians that we think you're probably going to get hit pretty damn hard this time. The capital is going to get hit. Of course, we're never going to see what the damage is, right? We're never going to see what sort of strategic assets Russia actually targets in Kiev when they do this civilian infrastructure and government facility bombardment. All we are going to see is what they want us to see. We're going to see the civilian stuff, which is going to be bad. I'm not trying to diminish that, but that's all they're going to show us. So we don't know what the hell is going on because it's a total police state. They're under martial law. They control all the information that comes in and out of that place. They're scooping guys up off the street, sending them into the meat grinder. Okay, there is no law and order in the democratic sense of the word that we pretend as though we are advocates of. Unfortunately, that is not represented here. This is the future. Okay, so just remember that you heard it here first when the police come knocking at your door like they did on Andrew Tate's door last night, although I don't think they came knocking. I think they just kicked in the door. Apparently, they've now been put on house arrest, by the way. So, who knows? Just wanted to rattle their cage. They were starting to get a little bit too lippy on certain topics, but this is what's going to go down, man. And I do believe that they're going to continue to push and push until Russia pushes back, and this is why a lot of the people surrounding President Putin right now are saying, you know what? I think that the consensus is there that you could use nuclear weapons and your population would probably be hip to the idea because, let's face it, nothing else is working. The 237th bombardment of Kiev that nobody's ever going to see the results of is clearly not going to push them over the edge. We know that the West is going to continue to push incessantly to the end until you fundamentally push back in some way, shape, or form, especially now in the run-up to the election, the bullshit election thing, right? That nobody should really care about because at the end of the day, it's not going to make a difference, okay? There's going to be these marginal changes and nothing fundamentally about the way things are done is going to change until the system collapses and maybe from a phoenix, like a phoenix, we rise from the ashes thereafter. So, yeah, get out of Ukraine, according to the U.S. Embassy. Now, at the Geilenkirchen, German air base today, there was a warning. Okay, so they did an evacuation of non-essential personnel because they believe that there's a high risk of some sort of sabotage attack. They don't specifically say what that might be. Rumors were that it was just somebody was circulating rumors that it was contaminated water or something like that, but that doesn't pan out because apparently the surrounding community is not at all, hasn't been giving any boil water advisories or anything of that nature. So it's likely not to do with that. It's likely to do with the fact that this particular base has been getting threats for a couple weeks now. And in fact, a couple Russians were arrested on suspicions of espionage and intent to commit sabotage, acts of sabotage in the country. It is concerning, though, that this is happening with Germany. At the same time, when you have attacks, of course, on the Kursk nuclear power plant, but you also have this interesting story here, where you have the Germans claiming that a reconnaissance plane flown from Kaliningrad, possibly, okay, the Orlan 10 UAV has a 700-kilometer range. has been flying around a nuclear power plant, surveilling the area. Now, why on earth would Russia, and I have not given this any thought, this just occurred to me, why on earth would Russia be surveying a nuclear power plant? The only thing I can think of, I cannot see the Russians attempting to kinetically do something to the nuclear base, but perhaps maybe there's something going on there with respect to nuclear weapons development. Maybe they're, maybe they're scoping the place out for World War III. Who knows? But something is going on with Germany and Russia right now. There's a lot of activity, and remember, there were all those warnings from was it the CIA, who was warning about terrorist attacks throughout the Olympics that, of course, never panned out. A lot of those were broken up, but just across Europe in general. So we are bound to see this war spill over, the hybrid war that is going to continue to be waged inside Europe, and that's going to be what we see before the nukes fly. At least that would be the standard protocol, the standard sequence of events. This ship that was destroyed was Russia's last major railcar ferry into the region, okay? So this is another shot of it here, burning in the distance. It was carrying a lot of oil. So, of course, it is going to be burning for some time, another eyesore. Ukraine is really good at targeting and making those eyesores. It's great Pyrrhic propaganda. And, of course, these are having an effect. Russia can only take so much before it isn't having an effect on their economy. So these are not things to minimize. Like the Chechen commander said, Aladdinov, he said that if this war does not end this year, it is going to be a world war. That is very important to understand. He said, actually, if this war doesn't end in the next couple months, it's going to be a world war. That maps on pretty much to the timeline laid out by Alexander Vucic a couple months ago when he said, within 3 months, we very well could be in a real World War III within Europe. And of course, this could be part of the reason why Iran hasn't started the show yet in their neck of the woods, okay? The Chinese embassy is also advising Kiev, or its citizens within Kiev. I didn't even think that the Chinese had people inside Kiev anymore, but apparently they do. They're advising citizens against traveling to Ukraine over fears of massive Russian attacks, and they're also advising people against going to Lebanon, which is new. Okay, the Chinese have not advised people against traveling to Lebanon up until today. And some people suspect that a lot of the evacuation orders from Lebanon is just PR to try to put the fear into Hezbollah, to try to get them to make some concessions in the negotiations and gain some leverage in that respect. But this is the Chinese now saying it's time to get out, meaning it's going to go down. It's likely going to go down this week, the way things are looking, because Israel is threatening a ground invasion up to the Litany River in response to all of the escalation. And we're seeing this brief lull after these massive cross-border exchanges. 180 rockets fired into Israel just a couple days ago. Only a handful were intercepted, which either leads us to believe that the Iron Dome is depleted, or they were just intentionally not shot down because they're trying to conserve their ammo. We are seeing plane load after plane load, thousands and thousands of tons of munitions flowing into Israel every single day. They're just preparing for a massive bombardment, a leveling of Lebanon. Let's see if they can get deep enough. That one is going to be a brawl. And when that starts, Iran is just not going to sit by. And this is the only reason why I even talk about it. The only reason, and it's not that I don't care about the people of the Gaza Strip. I do. But, for some people, they always want to know, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, it has to do with you because the Gaza bone is connected to the Hezbollah bone, and the Hezbollah bone is connected to the IRGC and Syria bones, and those bones are connected to the Iranian bone, and the Iranian bone's connected to the Russia bone that's connected to the China-North Korean bone. And so when one of these things starts to blow, they all start to pop at the exact same time. So that's why it's important. That's why we need to pay attention to global matters, okay? What else do we got to talk about today? I talked about how the West is now of the belief that there are no red lines in Russia. And this is concerning. We have General Patrick Sanders in the UK dismissing Western concerns about the escalation of Russia's possible use of tactical nuclear weapons. It's no biggie, right? It's no biggie. And I'm of the belief, and we were joking about this today, that what you're going to see when the first tactical nuclear detonation is used, okay? Knowing Putin, he's going to go the demonstrative strike route. They're going to do some sort of test somewhere. Knowing Putin, he is very by-the-book escalation ladder. But if he is a true adherent to the art of war, like many in his circle are suggesting, they're going to go for the jugular. They're going to use it on a military base, and they're going to make a statement, okay? And all of this, Russia's just bluffing, will all make sense as to why they weren't actually bluffing all along, because they knew day X was coming. Then, of course, the ball will be in our court. But what is going to happen is we're going to see them use a nuke, and immediately there's going to be worldwide panic. When it happens, there is going to be global pandemonium probably for the first few days. And then you're probably going to have Western media come out and they're going to euphemistically characterize it as being not as big of a deal as we originally thought, or something like that. You know what I mean? They're going to diminish the significance of it. And then you're going to see the markets just roar higher after that. And then maybe a few weeks later, we'll see another nuke drop somewhere and the markets will, go down a bit. But then the Fed will turn it on and the Bitcoin bros will come out of the woodwork and they'll be like, talking about the future of automation and transhumanism and Elon putting chips in their brain and all these other things they get excited about in the middle of the night. And, and then we're just that's going to be the new normal. And tactical nukes will be normalized. I can hear it. I can hear the news reports right now. The guy's going to come on and he's going to say something like, today Russia detonated a nuclear weapon. And then the other correspondent is going to come on. They're going to say, well, what we know about these nuclear weapons actually is that this is what we would call a limited yield detonation. Okay, so it's not that big of a deal. It wasn't a city killer nuke or anything like that. It was just and maybe we need to talk about, what is the real threshold to be concerned about nuclear? And you know how it's going to go. So there's going to be immediate panic, and then the West, who is completely unprepared for this scenario. Right now, they're just pushing and pushing. And right now, if you believe the whole political mindfuck, then you are of the belief that perhaps Zelensky wants to make a statement before the election because he knows that if Donald Trump does get in, then he may not receive the support. But I'm pretty sure Donald Trump's going to realize real fast, and the Russians know this already. They've already stated as such on numerous occasions that it's not going to change a damn thing, whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. At the end of the day, all it might do is postpone it, which will just make it worse later on. So, but Zelensky now has an incentive to create absolute chaos with reckless abandon at this point in time so that they can provoke the Russians into doing some crazy shit. The question is Vladimir Putin going to take the bait? This is Vladimir Putin's demeanor after learning that there's Americans in his country attacking nuclear power plants. Meh. I mean, I've seen people freak out because you forget to signal, in front of them and you pull into the lane. I mean, this is the most flaccid response that we could have expected from Vladimir Putin, which leads me to believe, but I can see an underlying angst within him. If you really look close, you can see there's an underlying tension building. Like, he knows shit's gonna go down, okay? He knows day X is coming. This guy knows something. Russians specialize in intelligence, man. They know many, many moves ahead. And I think this is why they've been able to survive all of the sanctions and everything the West has thrown it thus far. Cool as a cucumber, but for how long? You know, be very concerned about the quiet guy. You know what they always say. Patrick Sanders insists that, yeah, we overestimated how Russia would respond to our support for Ukraine. In some ways, we're holding ourselves back because we've allowed the Russians to have escalation dominance. And we need to start taking it to them because they're just bluffing. They're just chickens, right? You know, that whole test of the Moscow bunker system, that was just a fluke, right? Joseph Borrell demands lifting restrictions on Western weapon strikes on Russian territory to advance peace efforts. Where did we hear war is peace before? Was that an Orwellian story? I can't quite recall. Pentagon gives the green light to strike inside Kursk. According to Sergei Chemezov, and this is just but one of many high-profile elites, politicians, pundits inside Russia, and they're all saying the same thing. Here's what he has to say. CEO of the Rostec Group and a close associate of Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed that the United States and the Western allies risk provoking a world war if Washington continues to provoke the conflict in Ukraine and allow Kiev to attack Russian territory. The further it goes, he says, the greater the risk that the world will be dragged into a global conflict. It seems strange, but Western countries don't seem to understand how dangerous this is for them. Do you think that we might be exhibiting some hubris and arrogance? Do you think that we would ever do that as a nation, that might blind us to the consequences of certain things? I mean, if you look at how we dealt with the pandemic, okay, and if you apply that to how we're dealing with this situation now, you know, first we underreact and then we overreact. So what do you think that's gonna, what form is underreacting, right? Because, yeah, don't worry, just keep the borders open, masks don't work, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, shit, we gotta lock everything down and we gotta put masks on everybody in their cars. What do you think the equivalent of that is in a World War III setting? It's no big deal, they're not gonna fire their nukes. Oh shit, we gotta fire all the nukes! That's what's gonna happen. Can't believe we're still here. Can't fucking believe it. NATO plans to deploy an armored brigade to Finland as a defensive measure against potential threats from Russia. That's what they've been saying since, you know, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Yeah, we just got to take another oblast because of a threat from Russia, right? And remember how this whole thing started. Vladimir Putin claimed that the Ukrainians were getting ready to attack the Donetsk People's Republic. Okay, and so they moved in before that. So NATO was getting ready to bring Ukraine into the fold. If you believe the Russians. Must add that caveat for all the regulators out there. Lukashenko warns of nukes if NATO enters Ukraine. Belarusian president, well, I mean, they're already in Ukraine. I mean, what is this? This is just, why even say shit, you know, if you don't mean it? They're already there. They're helping with the weapons. They're helping with the ISR. They're with the mercenaries. They're waving their flags inside Russia. So Lukashenko's just talking shit at this point. Nobody takes this guy seriously anymore. Has issued a stark warning stating that both tactical and strategic nuclear weapons will be deployed if NATO forces enter Ukraine. There must be some sort of threshold that they consider NATO actually being in Ukraine, because they're so litigious in Russia. They're a jurisprudent bunch they are. South Korea has had a second nationwide drill for nuclear war. This was the second one that they've had since they started again in 2023. Okay, just another unprecedented thing going on. The drill was the second since the government restarted the exercises in 2023 after a 6-year hiatus in light of North Korea's military activities. People outside evacuated to government-designated shelters, one of the 17,000 government-designated shelters nationwide that can be found online. Now, somebody the other day said, because I said that, oh yeah, we don't have nuclear bomb shelters for the population here anymore, and somebody said, yeah, we still do, they're around here and there. A lot of those are decommissioned, they're not prepared. I mean, you might be able to use them and hunker down in them. It's good to know where they are. In fact, I've done a whole video on the 2,000 of these places that exist across Canada. A lot of them are just glorified basements and what they call radiation measurement stations that they have all throughout the country. There's a map that you can go see online. Just Google nuclear bunker fallout shelters in Canada. A lot of them are just, police basements and post office basements and things like that. But they don't have like prepared, ready to go with the vital supplies that you need, the air filtration. They don't have all that stuff in them anymore, like they do in the East, where they're actually preparing for these types of eventualities. All right, so that is what's going down in South Korea. Things are just heating up all over the place. I wish I lived in the blissful bubble I did in my 20s and I didn't know this stuff sometimes, because I know long term that's not going to be a winning strategy. But every so often I think to myself, it would be nice to just have taken the blue pill and drifted back to sleep in the Matrix, even though I knew the steak wasn't real steak, as they say, and just ignorance is bliss. But here we are. We are burdened with knowledge. And what that means is that people are going to be seeking your guidance when shit hits the fan. And I know some preppers fantasize about this. You're going to be the top dog, the king of the castle. They called them LMOs in that book, World War Z, Last Man on Earth complex. This is going to happen regardless, okay? And it's just going to be... I'm always fascinated with a little sidebar here. I'm always fascinated with apocalyptic film when you find out there's like this sorting process. You know those old coin sorters where you pour in some coins in the top and it sends the smallest ones to the bottom and it keeps the big coins on the top? It's like right now, because the grid has skewed and distorted the Darwinian laws. Okay, so you have people who are on the top right now. Many of them are cutthroat enough that even though they're these tech dweebs, they're still probably going to survive because they got brains. Or like if you were shrewd enough to make it to the managerial level in your occupation, then there's probably something in there that's a driver, that's a vitality driver inside you, an intrinsic motivation to survive. But there's a lot of people who are in the upper echelons, shouldn't be there. And what fascinates me about some apocalypse films, and I'm thinking about the movie Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 version, where you have the guy who kind of leads the group was just this normal guy, right? Just this guy who was like a salesman or something, like worked at some retail store, right? But he, for whatever reason, was the one making the decisions in the group. So you just never know who's going to be that guy, right? Like we all think but you do kind of know, you know what I'm saying? Like if you ever go and you do a project with people who are coming from different walks of life and they come from different tax brackets and different professions, and you would think that the people who are making the most money, that they're the ones who are the ones saying, okay, this has to happen here, and that they're taking the charge. Just look at who's taking the charge when shit happens, or who people are looking at, or who's keeping their composure under certain conditions. Those are going to be the people who are leading the way when all of this collapses. Anyways, back to the business section here. China has met with Russia. Russia Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin held discussions with China's ground force commander Li Qiuming. Why the ground force commander? Just thought about that now. Why the ground force commander focused on strengthening bilateral military cooperation between Russia and China? There's a reason for that meeting, okay? There is definitely a reason for that meeting, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's got to be something to do with military equipment, I would presume. This guy behind me, he doesn't look very talkative. He kind of looks like me at a party, the guy you don't want to talk to, because I'm thinking about prepping. Mind you, both of those guys don't look like people you want to talk to at a party, but I mean, that's why they're in their jobs. There was something else I wanted to talk about today. I just can't. Oh yeah, that's right. Russia's storing food in the bunkers. Okay, so this is interesting. Vladimir Putin is allegedly, never mind allegedly, I guarantee you this story is true, even if it isn't. And what I mean by that is, well, you'll see. Vladimir Putin is allegedly storing large quantities of food in a nuclear fallout bunker. Okay, so you think, you hear this headline and you're like, and this is from a Western headline, and you think, oh, okay, so they're trying to make it out like Putin, the scared, frantic dictator, is hiding in his hole. But unfortunately, the truth is much more worrisome. The bunker is in the remote Altai Mountains with food meant to sustain 200 to 300 people for 7 years. This is a sign of how, this is actually the West revealing how stupid we are. To think that the guys preparing for nuclear Armageddon only have enough food for 200 to 300 people? I highly doubt that. This is probably in this particular shelter just in case Vladimir Putin can't make it to one or the other, to the big complex that can house tens of thousands of people, okay? Food details include dry rations, cereals, canned goods, and reportedly very expensive and imported foods. And this is all being fast-tracked, transported by serious, well-dressed drivers with no contact with the source. Destination of supplies kept secret. However, they presume it's going to be in the Altai Mountains. Bunker features the Altai Yard near Ursul and Khitan Rivers, is linked to elite Gazprom staff, and is believed to be a secret Putin residence. Noted for multiple ventilation points, a high-voltage power line, and advanced tunnel digging equipment. I would really like to see the Eastern tunnel digging equipment in action. That would be something to see. The future is underground, no matter how you look at it, whether it's dystopian or Mad Max, whether it's cyberpunk or Mad Max, the future is underground for the humans, not the transhumanists. Putin has issued warnings about Western actions leading to potential nuclear conflict, blah, blah, blah. This claim from a Telegram channel that is close to the Kremlin, but has not independently been verified. Okay, whatever you say. The Iranian Axis of Resistance is saying, they are saying the following. That is another downed $30 million drone. The response will come from the Axis fronts, plural, and will be painful and influential, and planning for it is one of the reasons for the delay. That is from Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is as good as the BBC in terms of Western media. Some people think of the name, they think, oh, well, that's just Eastern propaganda. No, Al Jazeera is like a Western vetted, establishment media. So if they're saying it, then it's what they're saying. But Israel has threatened a ground attack. The Iranian approach right now is to try to get Israel to succumb to preparedness fatigue and get complacent, act as though nothing is going to happen, and then out of the blue, Iran allegedly is going to do something. China ordering its citizens to leave Lebanon is concerning. I think that's all we have to talk about today. I want to encourage you guys. We talked about the NPCs. Yeah, we talked about that. Okay. I want to encourage you guys. If you are in the market for home security, if you live in an urban dwelling of any sort, you got to go and pick one of these up. I get so many requests. Even this, I don't like doing these. I hate, promoting stuff in my videos, but I hate it because I just feel as though it's like I'm trying to sell you shit. If I had my way at this point in time, I wouldn't even have the store. The reason why I made the store is I want to get people the highest quality shit. When the shit hits the fan, I also want to have a pipeline of goods for shit hits the fan on hand when it goes down. That's kind of my strategy. But I also want to have connections with people in the industry so I know what's moving and where it's moving to. Anyways, this is one of those products I would strongly recommend. Okay, this thing blew our minds when we tested it. It's called the Doricade. It's a simple door bar. Okay, this is all it is. It's this little bar that goes across your door and it mounts on the door. It looks neat, it looks clean, it's super easy to use, and ain't nobody getting in your door if you have this thing on there. Okay, it mounts to your door frame, and to prove it, we took all kinds of weapons to it. We took axes to it, freaking battering rams. I'll show you the battering ram. This is a video that YouTube completely throttled in the algorithm, like most of our videos. I'm getting really sick and tired of it, to be honest, but it is what it is. We put so much time and resources into these videos, these high production videos, which most people seem to enjoy, but YouTube just doesn't promote them. They like promoting the BBC talking about invasions of Russia on the trending page in between Little John at the DNC and other shit like that. Look at this. Look at this. That little bar is, and who's going to come to your house with a massive battering ram except the UK Gestapo when they heard you writing shit online? And what are you going to do about that? I'm telling you guys, go pick up a Doricade, man. It is a great investment. I mean, for the cost, for the security, like look at that. It just bent a little bit. We have one of these in every door in our home just to buy you enough time, okay? To get whatever sort of means you might have at your disposal to do whatever you got to do, if you know what I mean. All right, man, that's all I got to say today. Thanks for watching. Hey, bro.